Welcome to the Chowan River. The Chowan River is a beautiful coastal river that ties into the Albemarle Sound. The shorelines are loaded with cypress trees, big flats, lily pads, grass shorelines, and offshore wood. I have no clue what is going to play in this tournament. So as you can see behind me, this river is absolutely loaded with cypress trees. Now, one thing about it is this is a North Carolina coastal river. So it ties into the Albemarle Sound, and there are some absolute giants in here. Now, one thing about it is most of these MLF pros have never seen this body of water until a few days ago when they started practicing, or a few did come, several months ago to come check it out. But now, obviously, the practice right now is the most relevant time period because they are going to start fishing tomorrow right here on the Chowan River. Now, I've seen a ton of pros out here today jumping around, fishing a variety of different cover. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about what I think is going to play in winning this event. Now, I have over 30 years of experience fishing this Chowan River, and it's pretty much one of my home bodies of water. So I have a little bit of experience out here, so I'm going to talk about what I think it's going to take to win this event. I'm very excited to see how these pros are going to break this body of water that is so huge. I'm excited to see how they're going to break it down. So obviously, one thing you see right here behind me, cypress trees. This body of water is absolutely loaded with cypress trees. They are everywhere, all up and down the shoreline. All along the areas that they can fish, there are tons of cypress trees. Most of these cypress trees are in 4 to 5 foot of water, and they hold a ton of bass year round. So cypress trees are definitely gonna play. Also, this river has lily pads in it. So of course, lily pads or any shoreline vegetation holds a lot of fish. So they're a buzzbait, a frog, any type of topwater lure, even a fluke, anything like that could definitely play in putting some key fish in the boat. Now, their weight limit is 1 pound 8 ounces, so every fish over 1 pound 8 ounces counts. So that is hugely important because they don't particularly have to fish for big fish. Now, there's a lot of big ones in here, and you're going to see a lot of big ones caught, but who can catch the most bass over 1 pound 8 ounces is going to take home the win. So we're going to start off talking about what I feel like is going to be a very predominant pattern in this tournament, and we're going to talk about it right now. All right, so obviously I brought up the cypress trees, which you see right here behind me. So I'm holding a flipping stick, and I got a good old creature bait on here. Now, this is definitely going to play, and you're going to see guys fishing a lot of these cypress trees with a creature style bait, with a crawl style bait, and then maybe even throwing a wacky Cinco up around these trees. That is a good way to catch a lot of fish on these trees, and I think you're going to see a lot of these pros utilizing this technique to catch a bunch of fish around them. Some are loaded with cypress knees all around the bases, and then some have a much cleaner bottom. But one thing about it is what you cannot see and what is under the water is some of the keys to what trees are good and what trees are not. They may all hold fish, but some are going to hold more fish than others, and that is going to be because of the root system. Some of these root systems of these trees, such as this one I have right over basically my right shoulder right here, it has a ton of cypress knees on it. So it is a very vast root system where the bass can get in so they can ambush prey, they can ambush brim, crawls, shad, whatever, they can get in there. And when you take that old rage bug right there or some other type of creature bait and you pitch it up in there, they're very opportunistic feeders and they jump on it, they will eat it. And that is a good way to catch big fish, but also a really good number of fish. So crawl, creature style bait, flipping around the cypress trees, that is going to be one of my #1 techniques that I think the pros are going to be utilizing. So let's go ahead, let's jump to the next. All right, so something else you're probably going to see some pros throwing around. These coastal river bass absolutely love a hollow body frog. up against the bank, up in the lily pads, even around these offshore cypress trees, these big bass will come up and crush a hollow body frog. Sometimes I can get bit on a frog out here when I cannot get bit on anything else. Now, I don't know if they've picked up on this pattern or not, but I'm telling you, the hollow body frog is going to be a big deal, especially once you get out. The ones that stay out further towards the coastline, frogs absolutely crush them. You have a lot of pads, you have shoreline grass, you also have these cypress trees, and I'm telling you, if they are willing to come up and bite topwater, that frog is going to be an absolute key factor to catching some really, really big fish. It may not be something that you can rely on to really, you know, catch a ton of fish, but if one of the pros is looking for a couple big ones and they need to make a big comeback, the old hollow body frog is definitely going to be a key player, and you're going to see some fish caught on that bad boy right there. Alrighty, next thing up, the good old spinnerbait. And I believe the spinnerbait is probably going to play a little bit because in the next few days, they're going to have a decent amount of wind. Some of these pros are going to be fishing in windy conditions. And when you get that wind blowing and it's beating all around these cypress trees and around that offshore wood, the spinnerbait can really, really catch them in this river. That is something that does not need to be forgotten. So many times I've struggled out here, picked up a spinnerbait and threw it around the cypress trees and cypress knees and been able to catch a really good bag on the spinnerbait. And when you get cloudy conditions, which is something that we're probably gonna have out here, or they're gonna have out here, and you get wind, of course, everybody knows this spinnerbait shines in those conditions. You get up tight around this wood, you make very accurate casts around the bases of these trees, and the spinnerbait will absolutely catch them. Something else, a bladed jig will also work as well. But for me, I'm a big spinnerbait guy, and I've done really well on the spinnerbait. So I think the spinnerbait is going to be a key factor as well in this MLF tournament coming up. Now, something else y'all know that I cannot forget, the good old toad buzzbait. Now, out here on these coastal rivers, around these cypress trees, in the pads, the buzzbait absolutely catches them. I love utilizing this along the shoreline trees, but also these offshore cypress trees. It absolutely catches them as well. And I can tell you, the offshore cypress trees, the ones that are out off the bank, they are going to be a key factor in some of the bigger fish. A lot of the smaller fish tend to kind of hang up against the bank. You can do some really good numbers up there. You can catch some good numbers, but the offshore ones, those are the ones that you're going to see probably produce some of the bigger fish. So I'm just so curious to see how these guys are going to break it down with no prior knowledge. It's going to be so cool to see it, but definitely do not want to forget about the buzzbait. All right, so last but not least, when I'm talking about the lures here, the big ribbon tail worm. Now, the reason that's going to come into play is because this river has tons of offshore structure, tons of broken off cypress trees, stumps. It is literally littered with offshore wood. And now with live scope, these pros can come out here, find this wood, find these schools of fish on this offshore stuff, and they can catch them on a big worm. Of course, also you can throw a jig around it. You could throw a drop shot, a shaky head. Any number of these baits can catch fish on this offshore structure. But in the deeper stuff, I like throwing a big ribbon tail worm. And I believe that some pros are going to pick up on that, and they're going to be able to catch some key fish utilizing a big worm. Now, as I said about the weather, it is some thunderstorms coming. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be windy. These pros are going to have to deal with some fairly windy conditions out here on the water. But I think that's going to make the fish bite even better. And I think you're going to see these pros really, really catch some big ones. And I think you're going to see them catch a lot of fish. I do feel like moving baits are going to be key, but also the cypress trees, if that flipping bite really dials in, or even that wacky Cinco bite on these trees, that is going to be an absolute game changer. So, as far as predictions, I want you all to tell me down below, who do you think is going to win this MLF tournament out on the Chowan River? Comment below. And whoever gets it right, you have to comment, you know, within the next couple days. If you get it right, I'm going to send you a Lew's reel, a Lew's speed spool reel. I will send you one if you get it right. And if a couple people get it right, then we'll split up a prize package. But let me know down below, who do you think's gonna take it? I wanna know, I really wanna know. I'm gonna say Andy Morgan's got a shot. I think Andy Morgan's got a good shot. I think this lines up well for him as far as the flipping bite goes. But I'm gonna tell you, some of these offshore live scope guys, they might really dial something in and get on a good bite. And you might see some of them, such as Jacob Wheeler, Alton Jones Jr. You may see some of those guys really dial that in and catch some big fish. So let me know, who do you think's gonna win? I might get out here and I'm gonna get out of their zone. I'm not gonna fish in the zone where they're fishing at, but I'm gonna go out of the zone. I might throw a couple casts, see if we can put one in the boat. But I really appreciate y'all watching and checking out this video. Be sure to go check out some of my other videos where I'm fishing and catching them pretty good. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time on Gunfish TV.